Hi, everyone. Welcome to My Identity and My Career. Yes, my name is Kamal Morales. I am a 20-year-old junior from the Bronx, New York. I'm a double major, public relations and musical theater, and I'm so excited to be here hosting tonight. We have a very, very, very special guest that's joining us here tonight. Tonight, this is going to be a continuation of the My Identity and My Career series from the Imagine 2021. You can find recordings of the previous sessions on our YouTube channel. So while we wait for Thaina Gonzalez, I'll tell you a little more about myself. I am the gospel choir director, and I'm also on the e-board as the vice president. And I'm also heavily involved in campus. I work with the alumni department for the scholarship department, and it's really exciting involving myself in that. I'm an off-campus student, and I love to involve myself with fashion, involve myself with a lot of people. So it's really cool. So while we wait for Thaina to join, we're just going to make sure she's here and her door press. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're so excited for you guys. Thaina.
Can you hear me?
We hear you perfectly fine. We see you perfectly fine. You're a star. You're a star. Thank you so much. Me and Thaina were able to catch up before this, and it was really amazing. And I can't wait for you guys to learn about who she is and what she does and how amazing she really is. So if you would like to introduce yourself and just tell a little bit about yourself, you can.
My name is Thaina Gonzalez. I'm class of 92. I currently serve on the Alumni Association Board of Directors. I am currently for my job, I'm currently the Director of Executive Office and Board Relations at SEO, which stands for Sponsors for Educational Opportunity. I've been there, it's going to be 23 years in June. And I'm also a product of SEO. I did the Scholars Program, which is a program that's 8 years from, basically we get kids from New York City and San Francisco public high schools to and through college. So that's the program I did back, way back then.
I love that. Thank you so much. So now that we kind of get into that, let's get into these questions. And also, if you guys have any questions for Thaina and you are curious about anything that she mentioned, please drop below in the comment section and we'll definitely get to it. So the first question I want to ask is, how did you get to where you currently are? How did you get to 23 years at your job? What process? Could you talk to us about that?
Sure. You and I talked a little bit about this. When we were in high school, and it's sad that it's still happening, we wanted to go away. My sister and I wanted to go away to college, and the college advisor said, no, you guys can't go away. You have to stay in the city. And we were like, well, why? And she says, because you can't. My sister met an SEO alum during that time, and she said, why don't you apply to this program? So we did, and they told us, our advisor at the time, you can apply here, here, here. You can apply here, here. We got accepted to all the colleges we applied to. Oswego was the first one of the SUNYs, and I said, that's where I'm going. And that was it. So SEO helped me and my sister, and I have two younger sisters who also went through the program, to get me to Oswego, which I love. My profession, when they asked, they were looking for an assistant to the president, I want to apply, and I've never regretted being at SEO. I love paying it forward, and that's what I felt I've done for close to 23 years, is paying it forward.
Yeah, and I think paying it forward, it's very important, especially, being a part of the minority community. Like it's very important that we instill hope and we instill motivation for people that may not see it, or they may not see their future past their circumstances. So speaking of that, how do you think your identity, first, can you express your identities, whether gender, race, all of that? And then how do you feel like your identity played a role into who you are and where you are?
Well, I consider myself a Latina, you know, first and foremost, that encompasses everything, female and of Latin descent. My parents came from the Dominican Republic and my grandparents back in the 60s, and settled in the Bronx. I actually I still live in the Bronx, even though currently I'm in Colorado. And I think that the women in my family are very strong. And my grandmother, who passed away my sophomore year while I was in Oswego, one of the most devastating things that ever happened to me in my life, was a very strong woman. And I told you the story about, one of the first women in Dominican Republic who said, I'm going to divorce my husband. I don't want to be treated. And she left him, took her kids. Women didn't do that back in those days. And, she went to live with her parents. And I've heard stories about my great grandmother, my aunts, my mother, my godmother, who's also my aunt, all the women in my family from all the generations, even my nieces, are such strong women. And all of them are like strong Latina women. And there's nothing you can't do if you push forward. And that's why I've been the way I am.
And I love that. I think it's very important to recognize that the story that you specifically told about her leaving, it's very important. Sometimes with women, people are always putting stigmas on you, and they're always being like, oh, women are not that strong, women can't do this, or they need a man to do this. No, they don't. So in regards to speaking about the external, how do you feel like society or the people around you, how do you think they play a role into shaping your identity? And that can mean the people around you closest or just like strangers in a positive or a negative way.
I think besides my family, people I've met through my life in school, Oswego, I've met so many people who helped to shape who I am also today. And I think that I never felt like the people who were around me were trying to make not be who I am. At least in Oswego, when you're there, and even back in the 80s and early 90s, we were a very small community and we all supported each other. And that made you want to be even more involved in LSU, BSU, gospel choir, ISA, Primo Latino, all those things. We supported each other. After leaving Oswego, you go back to New York City, and it's like, yeah, you're like, wait a minute, there's a lot of people here. How do I do this? And my first job out of Oswego was working for the Department of Education, back then the Board of Education. I worked for the Office of Bilingual Special Education. And then the job at SEO opened up. And I have to tell you that my first boss was actually my advisor when I was a student at SEO. So it comes
so everything
full
just full circle. Yeah. And I think that was a great point that you brought up. I think it's very important to recognize that you never know when your life connections are come back. And that's why I think it's very important to give your all wherever you are, because those same people, like you said, might be a boss, might be a coworker. And it's very important to really recognize that. So I love that. And so since graduating, have you learned more about your identity? Like what and its value that is brought to your profession? So like, for example, how do you feel like, being a Latina woman back then and graduating, how has that affected your profession, or what value has it brought to your profession?
I think that, being at the beginning, the organization was smaller and there wasn't a lot of Latinas on the staff. And then of course it's grown. But, sometimes when you're the only one in the room and, that in college, you're the only one in the classroom, you're almost like the voice for the group. Some people will feel like, I don't want to be the voice. I'm sorry, I do want to be the voice, but I'm not just the voice for Latinas, Latinos. I'm also the voice for Black males, Black females, Asian males, Asian females, Native Americans. I've always been, in Oswego, you guys have Alana. That was started by me and some of my friends that started the whole week because we wanted to make sure that all of our everybody was represented. That was back in the I think late 80s or whatever. Roosevelt Brown, now Roosevelt Mohammed, was the director, and we took this conference that Howard Gordon and I think it was Tyrone Holmes started like half day, and we took it to a week because we said this is too important not to be expanded and include everyone. And look where it is now. You know, it's amazing.
It's amazing. I love Alumni. When I first came to college and they told me about Alumni Week, now we call it Fashion Week because every program we be coming in, and I will say this to myself, I be dressing a little good, you know, a little button up here, blazer here. But I think as far as identity and Alana, it is very important that is a thing, because a lot of minorities sometimes we feel like we're not heard. And, you know, sometimes people see those spaces like we're excluding, you know, other people, like we may be excluding people, when actually it's inclusive. It's actually creating that space because the space wasn't created for us. And I think being a minority, being an African-American male, being a Latino male, being like, I understand what it feels like to have to represent. And I agree. I don't see it as a burden when I'm the voice or I'm somebody who's talking, because there's somebody that wants to say so much, but they don't have the courage. So I'm like, I got you. Just pass
exactly.
I got you. So I think
we're gonna work together. We're gonna work together in the future to make this even more. We got all of you that are on Instagram right now.
Yeah, we are. And this is what is so beautiful about communication, which is so beautiful about people's identities, people, races, because we can come all together and we can share so much and build so much from that. So kind of like the last question that I kind of wanted to ask, and if anybody has any other questions that you want to ask Thaina, you can leave them below in the comments. So as far as your career, what do you think is something that you can leave these people with? Something motivational, something that you learned that in regards to Oswego, something that you can leave with everyone?
This is something I've said for years to co-workers or even young people that I've mentored or spoken to. When you have a job, you know, we all need to work, period. Try to find something that you're passionate about, okay? Sometimes because it is a job, you might get annoyed and be frustrated.
And will.
But yes, because nothing is perfect. But use it as a learning. For years, I'm like, oh, think of it as you're in college again. So you're learning new things, but you're getting paid for it. So and then you meet new staff that come in and they teach you more. Like, I don't think in all these years I've been at SEO that I have not learned something every year. And I feel like I have given knowledge, and I hope if any of my coworkers join today, that I've been able to give some of my knowledge and history of the organization and of my family and myself as a Latina, that I've been able to help and motivate people.
Yeah, and I think the core of our identity, right? The core of who we are as people is to give back. And I think it really is important for people to recognize that it really is something that is admirable, and it really is something that keeps us going and keeps us motivated and keeps us feeling like we're not alone and we are together. So I'm just so grateful that you joined us today. Thank you.
I'm so happy to meet you. I'm so happy. You're like, for those of you who don't know, both of us have two things in common, because you're graduating next year. So we'll both, and on the twos, we'll be graduated the same. And then the other thing is gospel choir. Kamal was telling me how as soon as he stepped on campus, he became director of the gospel choir, and now is vice president. So I remember one of my friends on the floor where I lived in Johnson saying, hey, there's a gospel choir. You want to be a part? I'm like, yeah, I love to sing. And I joined gospel choir. I was in Oswego 5 years, and I was in gospel choir the whole time. I was parliamentarian my 4th year and president my last year before I graduated. And I told you this, and I wanted to share for some people, our director for the 5 years was Vivian Howard, who also worked for OLS. She was one of the advisors. So she passed away that same year that, I graduated and left Oswego. And that was a big blow to the gospel choir because we were a family, and, but, we had Howard Gordon, Kathy Santos, Betsy McTiernan. There were so many people that helped us while we were there, and even helped a lot of folks right after I graduated. So I wanted to thank them personally through this, if they're watching.
Definitely. And I think it's I love gospel choir, and hopefully, I don't know, something in the future we wanted to do an alumni dinner, so hopefully we can do that. There is a question we had in the comments, and I'm going to read it. It says, Thaina, what is your favorite part about being an alumni when it comes to connecting with current students?
Well, it's telling them the history of some of the things that get lost through the years. Alana, as I mentioned, gospel choir, we need to connect to former alums that were in gospel choir. I love talking about all those things. And every time I'm on campus and I get an opportunity to talk to students about it, they're in awe and they're like, well, can you come back and speak? Can you, for the 40th LSU dinner, they asked me to come up and be the speaker for the 40th. I was so honored, and I gave a little history. So I love that. I forget the year because I don't remember things all the time, but in the 90s, mid-90s, the community of Latinos, Blacks, and Asian, we all decided we needed to have a reunion that happened during the year. And we called it Return to Odds. We've had several since the 90s, and that's the opportunity that we get to grab some of the students and have a conversation, and they ask us questions, and we try to stay connected as much as possible. That's why I had the opportunity I had, and BSU has had opportunity to bring alumni back also to speak.
Yeah, I think that's a core part of college experiences, being able to talk to alumni and being able to say like, hey, how was it when you were here? What did you do? Mm-hmm. How did you get a job after? Like, what did you do? And I think that's something that I hope that everyone gets from this live is that, Thaina, she's very open to, talk and help you out, let you know her experience, where did she go, who does she know, and I'm definitely going to be, emailing Thaina because, now me and Thaina, we're brother and sister. We're brother and sister. That's what it is now.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you don't have any more questions in the comments, I just want to thank you again for joining this session of My Identity and My Career. We are so appreciative of you, and we can't wait to see what more else you give back to Oswego.
And I will continue till I can't do it anymore. I really will.
Yes,
Oswego gave me a lot in my life.
Thank you so much. Okay, have a good night, everyone.
We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.